topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
All right, I think I am live, and as it happens, mindfulness in action. This is the first episode of the live show, Mindfulness in Action, and as it happens, technical glitches do bring the realness of what we are really here to do. And just to give you a background information, just as I was entering the show, suddenly my screen went blank or black, and I disappeared from the cyberspace. And I'm so grateful that that is happening at the moment, because it's exactly why I wanted to start this show or this sharing, to actually bring some real situations and insights on how can we really bring mindfulness at times like this. So what happened for me at that moment was a little bit of a paralysis. I froze. It's normal. And then I just went and relogged. Now, what is present for me right now? I have a knot in my stomach. And I notice my voice is shaking a little bit. And just coming to that realization, I'm actually noticing also that there's some calming happening as well. And I have this urge to close my eyes so that I can be fully present for myself. Now, this is what my practice has taught me, that being present with myself at times when things don't go as planned is really important. Now I understand what happens in the brain, or I have learned to explain all of that, the theory, the principles, but the practice didn't become alive until I really started to apply it in my life. To give you another example, it happened once that I was in the car. I was living in Beijing at that time, where I lived for 30 years, by the way. And I had my computer, and I was about to teach a class. And as I was driving, I suddenly realized I had a flat tire. And there was no way I was going to change the tire and get to the appointed place on time so I could deliver my session in the space that was calm and quiet. And I was really very close to a highway. And so I parked on the side, found the place. I had a friend with me who actually called someone to help with all changing of the tire. And I sat on the side of the road. Luckily, it was on Zoom and I could have my background image. And I just delivered the session without anyone knowing that I was actually outdoor. And luckily, there was also reduction of the background noise. Now, when things like that happen, I think we have the capacity. Like, it doesn't mean that my nervous system is not really activated, but what it means, I can really bring forward what is really important at the moment, and to surround myself with a space of presence where I'm focused and grounded enough so that I can really put on aside the whole, how should I say it, the space of my emotions still going up and down, and I'm questioning, am I talking too much? Am I going away from the topic? Do people understand? Who is the audience? All of that chatter is in the background of my mind. And I can again bring myself into the presence and just say, not now. Let's just come to a different way of being, because every time when I get my mind to drive the process, it becomes too mental. And I wouldn't like this space that we share on Fridays, 11 a.m. for you, it's 5 p.m. for me. I am in Belgrade, in Serbia. I would really like this space to be a place to pause, for us to connect, even though we don't have direct connection. I don't see your faces. I don't hear your questions. I don't know what you're doing at the moment. You might be driving right now and listening. You might be preparing a meal or just jogging, perhaps doing something else rather than, as my expectation would be, in auditorium, just sitting and listening, fully focused on what I'm sharing. So knowing that you might be engaged with some other activities and that this is, in a way, just something that is the sound that is going in the background of what your activity is, I would have an invitation for you to, from time to time, pause. It might be my voice that is going to be sending that invitation. But even if it's not, it's just to pause and really connect with what you are doing. Even if that means that you stop listening to what I'm sharing. And if you come to that point to really connect with what you're doing, if you're running, run. If you're driving, drive. If you're preparing the meal, really prepare the meal. And if you just decide to stop listening and do exactly that, I think that my mission would be achieved already. Because mindfulness in action means exactly that. That we are bringing the state of awareness when we are making conscious choices and being really connected in our body while we are living at the same time. You see, when we walk, we don't really tell our leg, move forward or bend the knee, or we don't need to bring our mind to give our body the instruction in order to move, unless we had an accident and we are learning to walk again. So in a way, rather than waiting for the accident to happen, I would be inviting you through our time together every Friday to bring that sense of connection with yourself and become curious on what that brings, what kind of quality of presence that brings. The research says that we utilize a part of the brain that helps us to use the capacity of minimum 52% of our brain power. Whatever that means, we're still exploring. But now, who am I? And what really gives me the courage, the daring to even want to make an attempt to present what is mindfulness. It's such a big word, and especially what is mindfulness in action. We have this maybe an idea that every time when we talk about mindfulness that we are going to go into stillness, close our eyes, meditate, how long we are going to meditate, go deep, deep, deep inside. Well, when I tried to do that, when I was beginning with my meditation, really meditation, I did a somatic practice first, and I'll share a bit about that later. But when I really sat to meditate, and the goal was to meditate for 45 minutes, I just couldn't keep my body still. I was actually in my mind shouting, screaming, desperately trying to keep my eyes closed. And I couldn't honestly wait for more than a minute before I would look at the watch and see how long I was meditating. It was excruciatingly painful, really. But somehow I was really determined to break that and to see what is on the other side. My teachers were giving very interesting stories. They were sharing some ideas of how cultivation of this kind of practice can help us become someone else. But my learning is that there is no fixing. If we actually do the practice because we try to fix ourselves, we ultimately diverge from the path in a way. So I began with my somatic practice some 23 years ago. Well, actually, it was more. Which year are we? Actually, it was 1999, October. I just finished a very difficult period. I didn't finish. I decided to finish a very difficult period of my life. I come from ex-Yugoslavia. And after the war started and I finished my studies of Chinese language and literature, I decided to leave Yugoslavia in 1993 and go to China, where I didn't have a job, I didn't know anyone, and I had very limited money. I mean, like we are talking about, the numbers are mixed, but I certainly didn't have my microphone went off just for a moment. So in that space of not knowing, I got connected with certain people who had certain lifestyle, and I really went deep into unhealthy lifestyle. Unhealthy meaning abuse of drugs, alcohol, not sleeping well. I mean, I was going to sleep at 4:30 in the morning and waking up at 10 a.m. But managing to work at the same time, I was angry. I was really angry about what was happening back home. And I felt lost. Now I can find the words. But at that time, I felt I was just being a rebel, a wild. And I decided to go against all principles that I have learned from my parents, from my education, very, very strict. It was communism when I was growing up. And so from 93 to 99, those were the 6 years of something that could have ended really wrongly. But somehow I found the way. And the way was that someone was, asking me, and a lot of people from that time, ex-Yugoslavia, they kept saying, wow, you live in China, are you practicing Tai Chi? And I realized that Tai Chi was here happening as a way of helping people to reduce stress. I was not interested in Tai Chi or anything calming or soothing. I had alcohol, I had drugs, and I thought that I found a way of what I know again now, really running away. I was really running away. So, but the challenge was a given, and I thought, like, all right, I'm not going to be in Serbia, but let me see what is that. And I started to explore the practice of Tai Chi. I went for one class, found a teacher in a park, rough woman. She was kind of like going with her fan and like kicking people's arms or like just hitting them gently, but like correcting their posture. It was all supposed to be very correct. And later on, I found out that she was actually a referee and that she was preparing people for competitive Tai Chi, where I actually ended up as well. And after the first class, I was really amazed on something. I was connected probably with my body first time in a long time in a different way. So I asked for the next class and the next class, and eventually started to prepare for my first competition in 8 months later, where I got a bronze medal. The way I was preparing was also very insightful. I would prepare for that competition on busy crossroads where there were a lot of cars, and just like my experience with delivering the class in the middle of the highway, that's what I learned during that process. So she was asking passerbys to actually come and distract me, while I had to keep my sequence and slow movements and just do it within the limited amount of time. I would have 4 to 5 minutes to complete my sequence. That was one of the criteria that referees were looking at. So this is what the practice of stillness and the somatic practice that I bring. From Tai Chi, I then further continued. My teacher then stopped teaching, and I looked for another teacher, began to train Qigong and Xinyi, Bagua, internal martial arts, very slow movement, very boring to watch. There's not much to see, but a lot is happening internally. And when I asked my Tai Chi teacher why we were practicing, she said, so that we can connect mind and the body. And she got my attention, and then she looked at me significantly, and she said, if you manage to do that for 5 seconds, then you are a master. To really connect your mind and body, to stay connected that long for 5 seconds. And I said, well, how long will it take me to do that? And she said, 10 years. And I kind of like brushed all of that away and decided to more set my intention to win medals. So I competed another time on Out Games in Australia in 2002, where I won silver medal. And that was really, really amazing experience. But when I met my second teacher, I asked him, I said, would you like to be my teacher? I won medals, you know. I have silver and I have bronze medals. And he just looked at me and he said, medals? And then he laughed and he didn't answer. But eventually he did begin to teach me. It's only later I understood what he meant, that how flashy all of that is when we go and say, I won medals. It actually doesn't mean anything. When we start to cultivate the practice, that is applied in life. Like when I would go again to the park and practice with tears because my work was not happening. I had some frustrations, stress, or I would hear disturbing news from home, or I would have health issues, and he would bring the practice to help me discern how through the movement actually I can have a shift of my perspective. This was really, really precious. I practiced for a little bit over 8 years with him. At certain point, I got to the place where I was practicing 5 hours a day, really, really dedicated to that. No competitions, just park. And then at certain point, I met with one practitioner, Israeli woman. I hope she's going to be my guest as well. I love conversations with her. She uses mindfulness-based dancing and movement as her practice. And we were having conversation, and at certain point she said, Alida, you're so critical of yourself. And she said, what about compassion? At that time, I was already exploring mindfulness for quite a while. And by the way, mindfulness helped me to realize that in my practice, that connection with the mind and body was just not happening. Most of the time when I was doing my sequence or exercising, in my mind, I was actually making plans on how my work meeting was going to go, or trying to get the insights of how to respond to that email, or where I'm going to go for holiday and so on. And feeling really inspired with all of that. But being present was really something that I didn't learn from practicing internal martial arts. And therefore, I actually couldn't really get too far. I was putting a lot of effort, but my real result was a little bit short to what the teacher was expecting. To have a real kung fu, to have power, to be able to fight literally, and to be very calm, soft and hard at the same time. Those are the qualities that are regarded as proper when practicing martial arts in China, especially for a woman. So when I started practicing internal martial arts, I was going in that direction, but when I discovered mindfulness, I realized, oh, this is what they mean. And I began to practice really secular mindfulness in 2009. So that is 10 years later. And the reason for that was that I had depression. It was an economic crisis, and I was really, really scared that I was going to a financial crisis, right, in 2008, and I was scared that I was not going to survive again. So I began practicing mindfulness at that time. I started to meditate. And then with this friend of mine who said, I'm not compassionate enough, I started to practice mindful self-compassion and eventually became a certified teacher. My professional background is actually in coaching. I'm a PCC, a professional certified coach with ICF. And in China, I worked as an executive coach with many leaders who were dealing with so much pressure while handling complexities, rapid change and growth of China that was happening in 90s, and then pre-Olympic, post-Olympic, and so on. So eventually I began to weave what I learned in my free time with my martial arts practice, my mindfulness practice, in a way, or learning how to regulate my stress levels as I was dealing with those complexities as well. And then began to teach it. And I have a coaching school at the moment as well. And I train people to bring mindfulness and coaching into their professional and personal lives. So I would like to share a poem that I wrote, if I find it. There it is. To also bring a little bit of an invitation on the practices and the flow of practices and what the practice really is. And so let us just pause for a moment. You may close your eyes if you wish. So this is an invitation to come, if you're still listening, and connect with me. If you can connect with me first by connecting with yourself, perhaps feeling your feet on the floor, noticing your breath. Right now, my cat Joy passed by, so I just felt his fur. I noticed with the corner of my eye that his tail is moving. I'm taking a few deep breaths. And let me first share that no matter where you are right now, at this point, I would assume that there are some difficulties you have in your life. If you're not, you're probably not alive. Difficulties meaning sometimes we can get hungry and we can't eat. That is too difficult as well. Or we are thirsty, but we can't drink. And then the level of difficulty can increase. So what happens when we sit still while chaos crashes around us? At first, the mind is agitated. Notice the rush of thought, the pressure making itself known. Do not react. Sit still. Discomfort appears in the body, in the heart. Go ahead, name it. Sadness, anger, irritation, helplessness. Do not react. Sit still. Thoughts pass, emotions pass. Do not react. Sit still. A soft voice appears. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. Pause. Feel it in the body. Savor it. Let this new sensation nourish you. Then stand up. Name what matters. Go and act. That's the order of things. There are times when we can explain everything with the mind, but the body cannot rush until the body really feels all of this. The practice doesn't become alive. So this is it for today. I'm sharing my intention to let you know who I am, where my practice comes from. And in next weeks, I will be having guests I'm still waiting to hear confirmation from who will be my first guest. But in the meantime, I wish you all well. May you find the stillness to regulate, and may you find wisdom to move when you are nourished. This is Mindfulness in Action. My name is Dalida. See you next time.